Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Swissman15, and welcome to the top 10 infantry for Medieval 2 Total War expansions. I'll explain more of how we determined everything in a second, but first let me introduce my two guests for this episode, who may probably be in the other ones as well. Captain Invisible and Zaz. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
I'm back, suckers.
Okay, so also thank you to you two for helping me test, along with Paladin Bob, Lone Hussar, Russian King, and a lot of other people. I can't even remember all the people that helped me test, and I'm sorry if I can't remember your name, but there was too many to really list them all out. So I thank you all who helped me test and make this top 10 infantry video possible. And also shout out to Black Venus, who made my awesome new logo, so he's cool too. So there are a few things we have to go over before we start going to the actual top 10. You can skip past this if you really want, but then do not complain if you disagree with the rankings, because a lot of these have to pertain to why certain things got where they were, why certain units were where they were placed. Probably the first thing we have to mention is that dismounted Retributor were not taken into consideration, because I don't like them and they're OP. But mostly because I don't like them, and also because they're OP. Other than that, any tests that could be done in Britannia were done in Britannia. Britannia was the main testing. Crusades was not included, nor Americas, because Americas is radically different. Crusades has slightly different mechanics. Teutonic and Britannia are mostly similar, so we kept them together for the most part. And then Britannia being the best is where we did all the tests that could have done in Britannia. Anything that was specific to Teutonic was done Teutonic, of course, but everything else was done Britannia. We did so through so many tests, and we gave each unit a battle rating. The battle ratings can be as high as 24. No unit got 24, but that's just for your gauging. It's 1 to 24, or 0 to 24 technically, but nothing got a 0. 1 point basically means that they beat one unit. So a value of 24 means they beat all 24 units that were in the final counting. It started in 33. We narrowed it down to 1, so it just didn't make it at all. So that's how it goes down. The highest is actually 23. That's number 1. So keep it in your boots. Get ready. That didn't even make sense. Keep it in your boots. Anyway, so we can get started, and Zaz and Captain Invisible can actually start talking. But did I miss anything about the testing that I have to mention, guys?
No, I think you covered all the bases.
Okay. So for number 10, can I get a drum roll? That was lame. There we go.
You're the drummer here.
Yeah, well, I don't have a drum set right now. Anyway.
I can't do this forever.
Number 10 goes to Morganic Spearman. Woo!
Oh!
Of the Welsh.
Spearman, what the hell?
Yes, actually the only Spearman unit that actually made it to the top 10, because they are the best. Unfortunately, Spearmen as a whole just don't have the stats to really compete with the other infantry. They have their own use on the battlefield, but they are not meant to beat out other infantry. They're meant to hold the line at most. But Morganics still do it so well given their stats. They have an attack of 11, defense of 20, a charge value of 5. They cost 730 florins, and they had a battle rating of 14. So they beat 14 of the units. That's just over half. I know that, Captain, you like them a little bit, don't you?
They look sexy.
That's all you have to say about them.
Yeah. No, I just like the fact that, I mean, when we were testing them and they beat so many of the heavy infantry units, I was absolutely surprised that a spearman could do that, because I'm used to spearmen just being good against cavalry, and then that's about it. But yeah, the fact that they could beat spearmen as well, with other infantry units, was just absolutely fantastic. So.
And it should be noted, they have a very high armor rating, so they can hold their own against missiles, especially with their shield. Not to mention, they have a unit count of 75, and they can do shield trauma, so they're pretty much the ultimate defensive unit, and can hold the line for a pretty long time, even though they won't win all fights. Zaz, do you have anything to add on Organics?
I mean, I've had a lot of very, very sore memories dealing with Wales because of those bastards. They're just a tanky, solid little spear unit that, you can throw them in against, the main fight. Okay, you want them to hold the line, that's okay. That's really about it.
Also,
I'd like to add an honourable mention to Paladin Bob for making these guys into gods on the battlefield.
That is very true. Also, that reminds me that if you want to have a general that probably won't die until the very, very end, which is critical as Wales and among other factions, if you put it in a unit such as the Morganics with such high morale, stats, and everything, in a Schildtron formation, the general goes in the center, he will not die at all, ever, unless there's like a catapult or serpentine to blow him to smithereens on a lucky shot. So that brings us to number 9. Captain can introduce it, but we get a drum roll.
I'm glad actually this drum roll. Yep. So number 9 on our top 10 infantry list is the Highland Nobles.
Yay! Highland Nobles.
Highlanders, yay!
They're not Highlanders,
Highlanders, yeah.
They're not Highlanders.
Highlanders on steroids, I think. I think we mean. Yeah, a pretty powerful unit. Only available for Scotland, obviously. Kilt-wearing freaks they are. I'm kidding. And
They're a bit of freaks.
And they, I mean, Scotland are available in all periods if you put all periods on, but they do really shine in the Britannia campaign, the Britannia expansion. Base stats: attack of 15, defense of 11, and a charge of 9. So they've got that really powerful charge going for them. Fully upgraded, with just a basic chevron, attack and defense, they go up to 17, 12, and 9 for attack, defense, and charge. Base price of 490 florins, and a fully upgraded cost of 852. They are effective against armor, get the combat bonus in woods and snow, frighten nearby enemy infantry, which is pretty scary for Scotland. Good morale, powerful charge, and good stamina. Now these guys are pretty sexy in their kilts. Sort of upgraded defense, they get just the really nice kilts, and they just look badass with those massive claymore swords. Obviously, when you start putting armor upgrades on them, they get helmets and things. But no, just go with the kilts, and they'll wreck lives on the battlefield. They have a battle rating of 14, so they're not obviously the highest on there, but certainly they are worth bringing as Scotland.
They're probably the best unit you have available to you as a Scottish Beyond Pikeman, because if you hold a pike wall and then you have the Highland Nobles with their scare enemy infantry trait, normally infantry engaging pikemen will melt anyway, but with the Highland Nobles in the ranks, they will melt even quicker and probably rout before they finish melting. So they'll just be gone, and you can just round them up with your border horse or something, making just them an excellent shock unit, especially with their charge and scare trait combined. I mean, I don't have too much experience because I don't play Scotland, but it's probably their most redeeming factor.
There we are. So acid wielding claymores then for melting people.
Yeah. Yes, melting. They physically just melt their brains. Zaz, I don't know if you know anything about the Highlanders, but if you do, you could share it now.
I mean, I barely play Scotland as it is, but I think a lot of people started playing this game in the first place so they could see an angry Scot and chop off the English heads. I think the Highland Nobles embodies that spirit of medieval too perfectly.
You know, fun fact here, the Highlanders, the standard Highlanders, also get the frighten nearby enemies trait, so bring, just if you want just a Highland army, just bring tons of Highlanders, Highland Nobles, and scare
Noble
them
Highland
out.
archers.
Just bring.
Yeah. I don't think they get frightened nearby enemy traits, but yeah.
If only there was Highland cavalry.
Oh, in fact, no, I'm a liar. The Highland Noble archers get the frightened nearby enemy infantry trait, so...
What the hell?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
I guess
serious archers I've ever
to be
seen.
honest.
All in all, these guys are probably the best shock troops you can get. Really solid infantry. Not the best in the world, but certainly enough to do the job. That brings us to number 8, courtesy of Zaz to introduce them, so we get a small little drum roll for them.
It's coming up. Number 8 on our list is... Stop.
Okay, we're stopping.
Zweihander.
Woo!
Zweihander, yes, ladies and gentlemen. The ubiquitous German man with the long sword, much like our previous Scottish friend, but he's 10 times more scary. You know why? Because he's got 10 times more armor. In fact, I'm not even sure the Scottish have armor, but they're amazing. They're basically little German wood chippers, and I really like using them.
I think what they have is an attack of 16, attack of 15, defense of 13, charge of 9, and cost 520. You have the battle rating, though.
One number. Yes, it's 15.
15 battle
I'm
rating.
sorry, I forgot that bit.
So
But
one.
yeah,
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, you. Okay, I will. Yeah. So they did have one battle rating above the Morganics or the Highland Nobles. They're probably one of the coolest, just given their unique name. They're not a dismounted unit. They are the Zweihanda, which Captain Vizzle made a very important point of saying it's not a two-hander unit. It means two hands. That means two hands, not two-handed sword, just two hands. So they are called the two hands. They're probably they're really great holding the line, especially in combination with the other infantry of the Holy Roman Empire or the Landsknecht. They're one of my personal favorite units. They look pretty awesome. One of the sexiest units of the game. I would say sexier than Morganics or the Highland Nobles. What do you guys say?
I like the fact that the name could mean that they wield in two-handed brushes or two-handed blenders, and not just two-handed swords. I think that's amazing.
Well, the Germans could be artists too, you know.
I'm really curious how they're going to wield a blender. The blade is covered by glass.
It doesn't matter. Their name means two hands, so they could be wielding anything in two hands, and they would still be the Zweihander. I think that is hilariously ironic, but just so funny. And as you said, their armor is so just amazing. If you fully upgrade them, they look like reptiles. That is just. Just so, yeah, that's it. Anything that looks like a reptile in armor, they're done. I will pick it on the battlefield. I don't care how crap it is. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, basically, you know, they're just an all-around great shock unit like the Highlanders, but just better armor, better everything, and use them.
Yeah, not to mention that pretty much anything except for armor-piercing archers will not beat them. Like their weakness is the Retinue Longuemen or Scots Guard, because they can fire, or Swaithier for that matter, they can fire a lot really fast to penetrate their armor and kill enough because they don't have any shields. But if it's against like crossbows, they can handle 1 or 2 volleys with their armor. They'll hold strong, and I think this is a hunch of mine, but they seem to have better morale than most infantry. They hold out to like the last man in most of my online fights, better than like Gothic Knights or Forlorn Hope or even Janissary infantry. They're just always there for some reason. They just don't want to run away, and I think it's because they have probably the morale of gods. Do you guys have a similar experience?
Bring
like
her
that?
down! Bring her down! Bring her down!
I'm sorry, you get your last bit, Swissman?
I just think they're gods of morale. Any confirmation here? That's sort of me just on the edge here.
Yeah, they're already, you know, they'll always last out in the fight. Usually, I've seen them like rout quickly a couple of times, but you know that could be said of any unit. Very
true. Which brings us now to number 7, probably the most unique unit in comparison to the others to make it to the list. Also being introduced by Zaz. So,
an old favorite. Drum roll, please. Number 7 on top 10 infantry valuable to expansions is the Christian Guard and Conquistadors. Yes, what a fall from grace these guys have had since our last list in vanilla. Not ours, but you know what I mean.
My list.
So yes, Christian Guards and Conquistadors, both same exact stats. Of course, the Conquistadors can get an armor upgrade, but we all know that armor upgrades are expensive in expansions anyway, so you might not as often use them. For stats, we got a price of 660, attack of 14, and a defensive charge of 3, and their battle rating was 19, which very, very impressive work. I was actually surprised how well they did against other two-handers with armor piercing and everything, but yeah, they still do their basic job as just holding line to sword and shield infantry. What I would add in context to the rest of this list, because there's a lot of two-handers on this list, is that because of their shield, they'll be able to take a little bit more arrows, especially the Conquistadors, since they have a lot better armor and stuff. But yeah, they're just your standard best line of sword and shield that you could get in vanilla, you can get in this game as well. Although they're just not as effective as they used to be.
What I do want to add, and something that I think that me and Captain really stumbled upon, I don't know if Zaz, you're probably there too. So we all stumbled upon it really, is that when on the charge, what was interesting, even though they have a very small charge in comparison to other units, they can sometimes shut it down depending on what unit is charging because they have a fast attack on the charge. So they kill the units charging at them, so they don't really get the charge off necessarily, which makes them pretty good at counter charges. So if you found yourself getting charged by like any two-handed axemen or halberds, you can definitely rely on them. Anything with low defense to really cut the first line down and not suffer too much on the initial charge. And I also want to note that this is going to come to the point where the next ones are all really close together. You notice the jump from 15 to 19 battle rating. Now all the other ones are really close around in battle rating, all very high. For being the top of the list. So this is where it gets really nitty gritty between them. Anything you might want to add, Captain?
Other than, as you say, the fact that they kind of sort of cut down the charge of most infantry you would expect to be really good on the charge, but they kind of interrupted it. It's kind of similar to the bugs we found in vanilla, but it was only ever on the charge. In fact, what I noticed more often actually is that two-handers started to pull it, even though the sort of sword and shield infantry, the Christian Guard and the Conquistadors, were winning on the charges because they were interrupting them. The two-handers were actually pulling back the battle in terms of the melee, so it was a bit unusual to see for someone used to vanilla for so long, seeing a sword and shield infantry basically tying off with a two-handed unit. That and the fact that the Christian Guard really shouldn't have that high armor because they only have chainmail. That always really confused me. And the tiny shields, but
this is very quality chainmail.
Yeah,
it's Norman chainmail after all.
That mithril make-believe mail.
Just as a closing point, I would also like to add the Conquistadors. They have very good stamina traits, so keep them running around the field as much as you want, and they will rarely ever get exhausted. It's amazing what those guys can go through.
Yeah, they're really good for long-term fights and withstanding archer fire because they do have shields, which is nice to increase the defense. And so if you're fighting anyone who's bringing, say, like a longbow faction, you can definitely rely on them to not take as much damage, but you don't expect them to be impervious. But it helps,
Yeah. What I always like to do with my Conquistadors is send them on a marathon run around the battlefield before I send them into battle.
I have nothing to say to that. Of course, you can't make them run forever, but they will last a good long time with their very good stamina. I'm pretty sure the dismounted Christian Guard have the very good stamina trait too. I thought they did. Or did they get rid of that?
Hopefully, otherwise they won't have the same battle rating.
I'm fairly certain they don't. I remember seeing them come up in the stats. I remember that specifically the Conquistadors, and after all, they conquered the Americas, going through volcanoes and then vast plains, whatever. They did a lot of shit.
Yeah, brought the plague to the Americas. Good times.
Don't you start don't start Invisible.
You can't blame the dismounted Christian Guard for that. So we're all good here.
I love a people that can stick two fingers up at Charles, the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire.
Okay.
That is funny.
Well, and that brings us to number 6, which was a personal shock for me that this unit actually ended up getting this low, and that it's probably one of the personal favorites of a lot of people out there, given that it was one in vanilla when it really shouldn't have been. But anyway, can I get a slight drum roll for number 6? And number 6 goes to Janissary, Heavy Infantry of the Turks.
Janissaries.
Okay. That was fancy at the end, a little artistic drumming. But anyway, they have
Thank you.
They have a attack of 14, a defensive 10, charge of 5. They cost 680 and had a battle rating of 20, so one more than the Dismounted Christian Guard or Conquistadors. What you may notice is that their stats are comparably low to most two-handers, but the thing that they really make up for is their attack speed in general. The halberds swing like crazy, So if a cav charge comes in and they just get one attack off, they will be able to kill enough. They have long-reaching halberds. I mean, so they got a bit of a range over other units in that regard. So if cav comes near, they can definitely get an attack off and cut off a few down. It's just the attack speed that really puts them above anything else, along with other halberd units. Do you guys want to add anything?
Yeah, only about the history. Because I mean the Generators are only ever one of those units that people think should be really, really great and never are because of the two-handed glitch. I think they have really improved them in vanilla, the expansions, which really helps solidify that sort of thought of them. Funny enough, the Janissaries were actually European children that were trained to be Muslims and then recruited as a stand-in army for the Ottomans. So, if you bring that over into Medieval 2, I think these Janissaries are the ones that you really expect to see on the battlefield, and they really do perform quite well if you use them correctly.
Now, there's a bit of an asterisk here, so I do want to mention some of their pitfalls here. The not so redeeming traits of them is that they have only an armor value of 3, so they are particularly vulnerable to missiles. You don't want them getting shot at too often, and they don't handle charges well at all. They're probably the least charge-resistant infantry that was on the list at all. So you got to be wary of that, and they do have a bit of a price tag, but if you manage to get them to avoid any direct charges by really good charge units, or and you can compensate their price, they will go a long way for you. Zaz, you're the one who hasn't spoke, so I don't know if you have anything to say about them.
My thoughts were going along the sides of Invisibles. I think historical wise they're very important as far as this game's all about military history, and the Janissaries and the Ottoman Empire in medieval history should never ever be overlooked. They were essentially, Saracen knights, raised since boys to be soldiers. And I should also like to add that the rank of Janissaries was very high up in the government. In fact, even if you start out as a little boy just kidnapped from his mother, later on they learned that you could get your son up to the second highest position in the empire, and the only thing higher than you was the Sultan, of course.
Yeah, so they are real badasses in history and in the game. I think that's what we conclude here. But
Oh yeah.
a little bit of an upset is the unit that beat them, because it does have a battle rating of only 19.5. I'm going in a slightly different order now. Look at me mixing things up. But this unit just sort of managed to do it just on price and everything to outmatch the Janissary Heavy Infantry in most regards, to just get one place higher. So a slight drum roll for the next number 5. Okay, no drum roll. The number 5 is Tabateria.
Start my own drum roll. I mean, I could do my own drum roll if you want.
No, it's Tabateria.
Tabateria,
It's too
guys.
late. It's already gone. Tabateria don't deserve it. Actually,
Tabateria.
they really do. That's why they're unique and not going to get a full drum roll for them. So they have, for Egypt, of course, another Islamic faction, which is interesting because no Islamic factions had gotten top 10 infantry for the last one, except for the Moors. But they have the attack of 19, a defense of 14, a charge of 9, a price of only 510, cheaper than Zweihander, and do way better, and a battle rating of 19.5. So they're really awesome. Just their cost alone redeems them. They're super cheap and can do so much. You can afford to upgrade them, and they will go a really long way for you. So anyone got any important notes to add about the Tabateria or Tabateria?
Not important, but I like your pronunciation there, by the way, as well. A couple of things. One, if you really want to pronounce Tabateria right, just listen to the in-game chat, because that tells you just all you need to know about how to pronounce them. Secondly, I think the expansions took a unit that it was an okay infantry unit in the expansions, but obviously the two-handed glitch affected it. In the vanilla, but the two-handed glitch really affected it quite hard. In that they took a unit that had decent morale and good sort of almost holding capabilities, and then fixed the two-handed glitch, so it became basically what it was meant to be, a very, very good two-handed unit, which was the bodyguard of a sultan, Where can you go wrong with that? You're having the Sultan's personal bodyguard spammed in your army.
Zaz, do you have anything to add about this wonderful unit?
I would like to add that they're our very first two-handed axe unit. The previous ones have been either a halberd. We got one halberd and two two-handed swords. So this is our first axe guys. I've noticed axemen perform a little bit better against spearmen, and the double-handed swords do better against the double-handed axemen. But it's just little idiosyncrasies I've noticed in gameplay. Might just be a little usual bad programming as per
No,
usual
that's quite.
enabled.
Yeah, no, that's quite interesting. I don't notice those things. I'm too busy looking at the pretty units kill each other.
Me, it's just spending hours grinding this out, so I saw a lot of it. But yeah, but
Yeah.
combined with Egypt's, Royal Mamelukes, the Maces, and their Nathatuns, you have one very, very dangerous rush faction, and you better know how to contain it well, otherwise it will overwhelm you easily.
Again, you have to be wary of their armor, so they will take damage, and as all the axemen do, they seem to have a lower attack speed, so if you have any units that are like just single-handed unit or one-handed weapons or just sword and shield or anything, they will definitely get the charge attack off quicker, but they can handle it like against spearmen. They'll chop them down, especially Morganigs. Holy moly, they had no mercy.
They did.
And not to mention, again, they have some pretty cool style points. I think a lot of the style points have increased for the expansions because you can actually see the units that are supposed to be good look good at the same time. But again, they are overshadowed by the next unit to be introduced by Captain Invisible. So a drum roll for
Here we
them.
go.
Right. Yeah, so I won't do my own drum roll this time for the Halbruder.
Halbruder.
The Halbruder. Sorry, this is one of those units that I really cannot pronounce. The Tabadari I can just about do because they say in game. The Halbruder don't. So I'm just going to go by their English representative name, which is the Half Brothers. These guys were obviously not fully ordained knights, but of the Teutonic Order, but they were partially ordained and were definitely still a potent part of the Teutonic Order's troops. With a base price of 630 and a fully upgraded cost of 1,028. Base attack stats of 11, defense of 12, and charge of 15. Fully upgraded, they go up to an attack of 13, a defense of 13, and a charge of 5. They are effective against armor, being a halberd unit. They are obviously quite effective against armor. They have a combat bonus in woods and snow. They have good morale and good stamina. Funny enough, I can't remember whether these guys can form the spear wall formation. I believe they can.
They cannot.
Can they not?
Cannot.
Because I didn't see that in their stats. So yeah, funny enough, it's one of the few European halberds that cannot form the spear wall. I know a lot of the Eastern halberds can't do it. That's the sort of the difference between the Eastern and the Western sort of doctrines. But the halberd are not being able to form that spear wall. It's not a major issue because they are an attacking halberd anyway, but certainly it would have been quite nice to see. Quite an interesting thing to note about the halberder is that they actually have shields on the
But they have no shield value actually, so it's just there for aesthetics. Really. So it doesn't help them at all.
That's very interesting. No, but they look sexy, so it doesn't matter.
There is an important to note here is that, of course, they are solely available in the Teutonic expansion to the Teutonic Order. They're limited to 2, but I think what they did in the Teutonic expansion is that they made halberds even better. If we did it based mainly in the Teutonic or the Teutonic expansion rather than Britannia, I feel like Janissary heavies would have been a bit higher on the list overall because halberds do not perform the same way in Teutonic and Britannia. But all in all, that's why with the lower stats than Janissary infantry, but they have a lower price and they pretty much fought them to a draw most of the time. So that's why they got there with a battle rating of, what was it, 20.5? So
20.5, yeah.
and they just pretty much everything that the Janissary heavies do, but just a little bit better against all infantry for some reason, which didn't make too much sense. I guess if you compared them head to head in Teutonic only, the Janissary heavies would beat them, but the thing is that the price really helps the Halberder get ahead. Just 50 florins cheaper to do pretty much the same thing overall. That's why they ended up being higher than the Janissary heavies overall. Zaz, do you have anything to add?
Man, when we were first trying to test in this, I was pretty indifferent to it, but man, I figured out it was the little engine that could, oh, let's throw them into these guys, let's throw them into these guys, and they just kept on chomping away, like you said, upgrade Janissaries, they just push forward, man, they're good.
And that brings us to number 3, which is probably one of the most personal favorites. I think most people would have bet that they would have gotten number 1. So it's going to be a little bit of an upset to a lot of people, and especially Lord Varangian, foreshadowing. Ha, ha, ha. So number 3 goes to Zaz.
At number 3, this is top 3, this is where things get controversial. We have the Varangian Guard. Woo-hoo! Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the boys in purple are back in a very, very big way. Let's see here, their stats. Yes, they had a Swissman's score of 20.5. They cost 610 florins to purchase, 19 attack, 15 defense, and 9 charge. And what can you really say about these guys? They're infamous in Byzantine history. In fact, Byzantine writers referred to them as Peliki Fori Barbaroi, or something like that, which literally means in I think Greek, axe-bearing barbarians. So just give you the idea of what kind of people we're dealing with. Just these crazy Scandinavians and British people just coming to protect the Byzantine Emperor. But yes, in battle, they cut down horses, they cut down other knights, they cut down just about everything else you can imagine, but there were 2 more units that performed a little bit better. So what are your thoughts on them, Swissmen?
Well, I personally like them because they do a lot what the Tabaria does for just a little bit more cost, but they do a lot more with their armor for some reason. I'm not sure, I think they're not that far in armor rating in the actual game, but for some reason the Varangians seem to live more. They have 1 more defense, so that might attribute to it, but they just do a lot. The charges go really well for them, despite them being an axe unit. They're just probably one of the coolest units. Of course, with the purple, they just stand out. They look great, and of course, they are the Varangian Guard, so they have the historical significance to the Byzantine Empire, of course. And they're probably the most redeeming factor and probably the best unit available to the Byzantine Empire in all the game. So, Captain, do you have anything to add to this?
Before he was king, Harold Hardrada was part of the Varangian Guard.
If only I knew who
so
that
before,
was.
before he died at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, that was it. Harold Hardrada was part of the Emperor's Varangian Guard. And obviously when the Normans took over England, a lot of the House Carls, the Saxon House Carls, also joined as part of the Varangian Guard. So, yeah, as you've already mentioned, some very fierce northern warriors in the Varangian Guard, and they obviously got quite a good reputation. In fact, one of the few times they actually lost was against the infamous Norman Knights, which obviously were able to trample over the poor Varangian infantry, but still really, really ferocious infantry, and definitely had a reputation like the Janissaries for being just one of those units that people love to see fight on the battlefield.
And before we go on to number 2, and of course the winning top infantry of all the expansions, we have to mention is that there are certain units that were big favorites that did not make the list. I'm not going to say what yet because no spoilers, but keep calm. Listen to us at the end. We'll explain these guys as honorable mentions and why they didn't get to the list. Just want to throw that out there. So this brings number 2, which will be introduced by yours truly. Probably my favorite unit at least my favorite infantry, let's say it at least that, and probably the sexiest unit of the game, and I will not compromise on that. Can I please get a wonderful drum roll for number 2? and it goes to Dismounted Gothic Knights, the
Gothic
Swyhanders
Knights.
on crack. Um, these guys have an armor rating of 8 alone. Just to let you guys know, that's the highest you can pretty much possibly get. Like, that's an upgraded General's Bodyguard with armor and everything that costs so much, and they're awesome with it, and it just comes to them at a cheap price of only 590 florins. They have an attack of 15, a defense of 16, and a charge of 9. You can give them an attack upgrade, getting them to 16/16 with their Swinder Sword. So they're excellent at it with a battle rating of 21, the second highest battle rating that any single unit had got in all our tests. They beat the Janissary Heavy Infantry in Britannia, but lost to them, sort of, tied them in Teutonic. So it was a bit of a toss-up there, but the price alone really brings them to number 2. And of course, they're just so sexy. Any comments, guys?
Yeah, they were those units that I think should have the frightened enemy infantry trait, just purely because the fact that they look like sort of super tanks. They look like men in just like robot warriors, and they look like if they open the visors, they would just have laser beams coming out of their eyes. Just imagine firing arrows at these guys and having them like stick into the armor and then or just bouncing off and then just like pulling them out and like not bothered.
'Tis
And
but a
then
scratch.
you just slice, just like pulling them out like whatever, and then slicing your buddy in two next to you. They're just one of those units that should instill fear. They are the embodiment of the Imperial troops, in my opinion.
Like, at some point, I wonder, some people are wondering if, like, we made this list purely for aesthetics, which wouldn't be true as all, considering our number 1 doesn't look that great at all. But yeah, the Gothic Knights, I think it's the one unit everyone wanted to play when they first started up this game, and to their disappointment, as long with the vanilla cavalry, I think they broke a lot of hearts. But now they're back at number 2, just amazing, as both of you said, tanky, aggressive infantry. Always get them charging in enemy lines. Don't hold them as a defensive unit. These units are built to charge in and kill.
Yeah, they will rip anything that doesn't have AP with them because of their high armor value that contributes to their defense. What I have to note about them is that I think their morale is a bit odd, because if they're in the most dire situation of all time and they're surrounded and they're getting rear charged by cavalry, they will fight the cav and kill it, and they won't break. They will stay there forever. But then you'll have random times where you'll be in the initial charge, they'll be fine, and then one unit of 49 will just start running off and like, what? Of course, that's rare, and you're just confused. They come back right away, but you're just like, okay, that was a bit of a detriment. It's gonna be 1 out of the 4 you can possibly bring. But other than that, they're just so good. They look amazing. They can handle armor-piercing arrows from retinue longbowmen pretty well. I've looked at it. They do it better than any infantry, just because their armor value, even though it gets halved, is still at 4, which is a lot better than an armor value of 4 getting halved to 2. So just really tanky. They hold out against any charges. I think I mentioned that, but I just really gotta throw that out there. So if you do a countercharge against cav, of course, they will get huge casualties taken, but at least the cav, respectively, will lose maybe close to at least 10 to even half the unit, depending on the charge given off by the Gothic Knights. So you also have to mention is that they do seem to run out of stamina given their heavy armor, but that's understandable for what they do. Any other things? I think, Captain, you haven't commented yet. Or have you?
I just commented on how pretty they looked and how they look like Terminators. But yeah, no, in terms of actual uses, I can see, as Zaz said, these guys being truly your aggressive, throw them in and get the job done kind of infantry. I mean, they don't even cost that much for what they are. They look capable of just absolutely tearing through enemy infantry. And as you said, the armor value is going to make it so that the maybe sword and shield infantry can't really kill them quick enough for the big two-hander to come down and slice someone in two. So yeah, they are just one of those units that you need to use really aggressively, and they'll just get the job done. They are just that kind of unit that will be able to win you an infantry fight without too much effort.
And given their ability, even though the H3 in the Infantry does not have quite the best cav anymore, the you can throw one of your various Swyhanders now. A Gothic Knight will kill. Even a Swyhander will do pretty well just to go on with the cavalry fight. So they are really versatile as infantry, but not quite as versatile of the top unit in the game. This unit was definitely a surprise to me. I didn't even think they were going to make it to like the top 5 originally. I didn't know they were this good until I did my various tests with the help of all the others. So Captain Visible, take it away. Let's get a super drum roll for this one because, gotta stand out. So ready?
Number 1 for the top 10 infantries for the expansions is the Gotland Footmen.
Woo!
It kind
Yes.
of died down towards the end there.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was trying to make it dramatic. I don't know. I'm sorry.
So the Gotland Footmen. To be honest, I know you said you guys didn't think that this would be top, but honestly, I've liked the Gotland Footmen as an infantry unit for a very long time. They are one of those units that just... well, you think the Gothic Knights get the job done. These guys get the job done the same as the Gothic Knights, except they frighten enemy infantry. So these guys are not to be messed with at all. Now, there's 2 variants of these guys. There's
let me
that
just
Norway
interject here quickly. I want to
Yeah.
put a little asterisk next to them. These Gotland Footmen, the number 1 Gotland Footmen, are the Britannia Gotland Footmen only. The Teutonic ones would
just-
qualify as Highland Nobles at number 9-ish. So don't take this out of context. Don't be like, I just tested this in Teutonic, they suck ass. No, in Britannia, they will never waver. Anyway, continue, Captain.
It'll make more sense when I go over the stats because, as you say, the stats are actually comparable to the Highland Nobles for the Teutonic ones. But for Britannia, it's only Norway that can get these guys. So you're gonna have to just be Norway to get the Gotland Footmen and get the best top 10 infantry unit. So for Norway in Britannia, they have a base cost of 640, so you're still not overly expensive. Fully upgraded, they are 1064. They have a base attack of 18, a base defense of 14, and a charge of 9. Fully upgraded, those boost up to an attack of 20 and a defense of 15 and a charge of 9. Now, as you said, there is the ones in the Teutonic expansion as well. You can get those for, I believe, Norway and Denmark. But Denmark's the Gotland Footmen base price of 520 and a fully upgraded price of 888. And as I said before, these stats are pretty similar to the Highland Nobles, with an attack of 15, a defense of 13, and a charge of 9. They get some pretty interesting traits, similar to the Highland Nobles actually, in that they get the effective against armor trait, combat bonuses in woods and snow. They frighten nearby enemy infantry, as I've already mentioned. They get good morale and a powerful charge. And just a few things to note about the Gotland Footmen, because they are probably one of my favourite infantry units in this game. So the Gotland Footmen obviously would come from the Gotland Island, which is just off from Sweden. And the one thing that the Gotland Island was quite famous for was the Battle of Visby, which was in 1361. Between Denmark and the yeomen of the Gotland Island, basically the peasantry of the island. And every time I hear about that battle, I always imagine how the battle would have gone if they did actually have Gotland footmen as part of their army. I can just imagine the Danish knights sort of riding up and sort of giving it all the bravado, and then suddenly seeing these Gotland footmen with these giant two-handed swords hewing down the cavalry and scaring off all of the infantry. And the whole battle could have just gone in such a different way if these guys would have been part of the battle.
Yeah, of course, given in Britannia, like, this is the only time that they're so top notch. They're mediocre in Teutonic, but they don't have good stamina, which is kind of awkward in any case. It's kind of their balancing factor. I think with good stamina, they might be a little bit overpowered, but since then, I like how they don't. So they're a bit balanced. So you can't rely on them in very, very, very late game. If they're exhausted or anything, they might route a little bit easier. But for your initial fight or anything, in a rush or something, they will smash the enemy infantry. They will not only outplay them, but they will rout them before it's too late, and they can plug a hole somewhere else. Well, because the other infantry available to Norway is not necessarily at the same caliber as other infantry, so they can definitely beat something and then run off, take on cavalry. They do everything, and they will scare them away. I don't really have anything more to add about them besides that they're just the best.
I'd like to chime in. This was definitely the dark horse unit to end all dark horse units. I barely even knew what the hell this unit was before we even started doing this testing, but what a surprise indeed. I would like to add that with their scare traits, in the Norwegian army, you can also get the dismount Huskarls, who also have the fear traits. So if you get a whole battle line of those infantry together and get some really good tanky cav, you'll have one of the best rush armies you can possibly put together. You know, very, 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 very few things are going to be able to stick up to you unless like some ridiculous pike wall and like thousands of archers. You're going to need every little bit you can get to handle an army like that. Also, remind me, do the mounted Huskarls have the scare trait?
Mounted, I don't know, but that's kind of irrelevant.
I believe they do. I believe they do. I can't remember whether they have them in both expansions or just one. But yes, I believe if the dismounted version of a unit has the scare infantry trait, then the mounted one does as well. So yeah, the mounted Huskarls, as far as I'm aware, do have the scare enemy infantry trait. So you've got that going for you as well.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna add, like, if you want to add this to your rush army, if you find out they do have that scare trait, you know, all the more better. You're just scaring everybody in every direction. It's basically the Norwegians' key to success is fear.
Route fast.
Exploiting it, and it's wonderful. Shut up.
Okay, so there's probably a good number of you right now thinking, Swiss man, you screwed this up. You left out the Guillotines Chosen, or you left out Norse Axemen, or Forlorn Hope, or British Axemen. Well,
how could you leave out my favorite infantry?
The thing is,
how could you, Swiss man?
all of
the
these
bestest unit ever.
All of these units failed to meet the standards necessary. Like Guillotines Chosen
met the cut.
Yeah, they only had a battle rating of 14 overall because their unit size just wasn't enough. Of course, you have to mention that these guys are super resistant to cav charges, but given their cost and unit size as an infantry unit as a whole, they cannot match the other top 10 and make it to the list. Just sheer unit size really damages them. The other ones that on the honorable mentions.
Sorry, just to interject, the Guillotines Chosen are actually my favourite unit as well. So, just in case you guys are thinking, oh, you're just putting your favourite units on the list. My favourite unit didn't make it onto the list. So, and I think it's fair enough, as Swissman said, that half a unit is half a unit, despite having two hit points.
It's 2/3 a unit. It's 40 men. 2/3 a unit.
Yeah, but it doesn't make up for the fact that they are such a small unit. It's a bit disappointing, but it happens with these units.
I mean, the Guillotines Chosen have their use. They need to be in a line. They have to have other infantry supporting them. They can take on a cav charge early on and probably not die too much, but they can't always win. They can get surrounded pretty easily, which is their pitfall, really. The other honorable mentions we want to bring up and explain why they didn't get it, especially, are the Noble Knights / English Knights / Portuguese Knights, the dismounted ones, of course, dismounted Huskarls, Norse Axemen, Forlorn Hope, and British. Forlorn Hope, really, again, same thing, just they didn't have the unit size to do the damage or the stats that really put them ahead too far above other two-handed swordsmen. Do you guys want to bring in any of the other ones yourself, or should I go through them?
I think you... I'll also, how about we just start off with one each and we just sort of rotate. I'll start off with the you already mentioned the Noble Knights. So I was really hoping and praying for this unit to be in the top 10. It just didn't happen. It was the Norse Axemen. are just such a gorgeous unit to look at, and this also includes the Norse War Clerics. Just everything Norse seems to be pretty and awesome looking, and with that awesome, checkered shield in their back or whatever little weird design they have, it's just an awesome sight to see on the battlefield. But sadly, they just didn't perform up to par against the top 10. They just didn't.
You should note that
I'm not.
the Norse axemen are super cheap, 440. I just wanted to throw that in there. And you got to confuse me. You started talking about the dismounted noble knights and English knights, so I don't know if you had something to say about them.
Can I interject with them actually? The
Yes.
English knights, noble knights, and Portuguese. Thank you. So they are, they're one of those units that, again, for all two-handers, we would have expected to be up there with the two-handers. But when we were testing them, they really had their pitfalls. They really didn't. They didn't seem to perform as well against the other two-handed units. It might be because their armor's probably quite high. I mean, I don't have the armor stats up, I'm afraid, but in terms of what was going on in the battle, they just seemed to not really outperform any of the infantry. Now they cost 590, at least the English versions do, and if you fully upgrade them, they do actually perform really well on the battlefield. But it was just a case that when we were testing them, they just really did not do the job on the day. It's like knowing someone's a really good singer and then them going out to perform and just cocking it up. It's just not. There was just something not working on the day, and unfortunately, it's that consistency that we need.
And it really comes down to the fact that the poleaxes just don't attack fast enough really to kill off enemy infantry. Like against the Gothic Knights, they'll kill a Gothic Knight in one swing, but they won't get the swing off in time. So they'll be dead. And that's kind of hard to kill someone when you're dead, unfortunately. Other than that, I do want to mention is that the British Axemen, they were probably my second favorite infantry. Just they're so cheap and they do so much. But the thing is, their morale seemed iffy, and they sort of routed a bit early in the tests, and they didn't have the really punch factor to really punch through or kill any enemy infantry at all.
And the last one we should probably mention is the dismounted housecarls as well. Considering we've mentioned them quite a few times in this video, but they should be okay on paper. I mean, they've got the frighten nearby enemy infantry trait. At least they do I think they do in Norway, don't they, in Britannia, and then they might do in the Teutonic under Denmark. But they're one of those units that should do well on paper. I've not had any luck with them in vanilla at all. And it seems like in the expansions, they just suffer the same problems with morale and just not being able to perform as good as other units. But they did surprise me myself actually with how they were performing in the tests. They did slightly better than I thought they would, and they deserve to be on the honourable mentions list for that. Simply because the armor piercing, I think, really helped them, and I think they scared a few of the infantry off a couple of times, which was a bit interesting. But yeah, you're right. In terms of
don't get us wrong, we're not like bashing these infantry that didn't get it. They're like not saying they're terrible infantry. They're just not good enough to make it to top 10. They're not top 10 material in comparison to the others, and some of you might be concerned, but like, oh my god, I thought France and England are supposed to have the best infantry in the game. Well, I mean, they do have overall the best selection. If you compare it to like Egypt or to the Turks, they have the one infantry that's really, really good. The rest won't be able to hold at the same level. So don't worry, the game's not broken. The expansions are still much better. Trust me on that. You can quote me.
I like Zaz's. Nope, no, they don't. Screw you guys.
Well, just as one of the closing points, I'd also like to give a shout out to Spearmen in general. In expansions, they're fixed. Damn it, they work just fine. Like as you said, probably at the beginning of this video, they're not up to par due to regular sword and shield or two-handers. But against Cav, they do great. You want to thicken up your battle line a little bit, they'll do fine. They're just solid units now.
Like, if you
Even
think
the armored
about the
sergeants, I might
Mongols
add.
and Teutonic, the dismounted heavy lancers, they have attack. If
Oh,
I fully
yeah.
upgrade them when I use them, they get 15, 16. That's better than, like, or they have just a really high attack for a sword and spear. Well, no, I mean, spear and shield infantry. Of course, they don't have the typical spearman buff of 75 men, but they still, cav charges melt at them. They'll hold the line. They're not going to beat heavy infantry, but they can definitely hold, and then you can make room for your own cav and win the cav fight is really what the spearmen are meant to do. Now, this
Yeah,
has gone on a
I
bit
think-
long, so I'm going to cut it off any here. I don't care if you have more to say. I really don't care. So anyway, I thank you guys here for
No.
joining
Hold
me
the
and
door.
making this list. No doors being slammed. But you are able to say
Please.
goodbye. You can say goodbye. That's all you can say.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, guys.
Anyway, thank you all for watching. The other ones will be out as soon as I can. We still have to like finalize those lists for not infantry, but cavalry and archers. If you have any concerns about this list, do comment. If you disagree with me, feel free to. Just know that you're wrong, because we really tested this out. There's pretty much no wiggle room anymore for infantry. Cavalry and archers will be a little bit more debatable. I promise you that. So thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.